Welcome to the Woodturning Workshop. Today we're going to step back and chill out because we're going to be making a soothing meditation fountain. It's going to be a lot of fun and relaxing. Stay tuned.
The Woodturning Workshop is made possible in part by
Woodcraft since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Easy Wood Tools, offering a full line of wood-turning tools with replaceable carbide cutters.
Well, if you were watching earlier in the season, you remember that we cored out some bowl blanks from one piece of wood. Then we took the wood and dried it in a refrigerator kiln. Well, guess what? It's a month and a half later and the blanks are dry. They look great. And we're going to use them today to make our project. And we're actually going to make a 3-tiered water fountain today. But hey, I'm a wood guy. I don't know a lot about water fountains. So we recently paid a visit to some people who know a whole lot more about water fountains than I do. Well, what better place to go than a place that specializes in making fountains. Now, these are all big and beautiful, but the theory is the same. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Thanks for having us over. Now, you've got big stuff out here. I see this wonderful waterfall you got going. You obviously are working with a lot of things. We want to make something small that'll go in the house, but it's the same principle, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And you want something with something smaller in the house. You want something that you can kind of control the flow on.
Okay.
On fountain pumps, one of the most important things is that it's got an adjustable valve.
Really?
So you can slow the water flow down or speed it up as you need it.
Oh, okay, I see. So you don't want to column of water that high inside the house.
Right, because then you lose water according to the splash. So you can slow it down so you're not losing water.
Right. And you don't want to splash in the house really because it'll go in your furniture.
Right,
okay.
Right.
Now, how big a pump do you need and what are the factors involved with that?
Well, most of the factors are deciding how big your fountain is. This is a pretty good sized fountain pump.
Yep.
So you can go smaller than this. We also have larger, of course.
Yep.
But we tend to kind of go on the large size because you can always turn one down. You can't ever turn one up.
Oh, good point. And does the height of the pump, the fountain matter?
Yes, yeah. Most of these pumps will only pump to a height of 7 feet. So, right.
So you're fighting gravity.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Okay, it's not so much volume, but this
But
part.
the height, right, the
Okay.
head pressure.
Anything else you want to add to it?
Well, these are really nice. They've got a nice sponge filter on the inside that keeps debris from getting in and keeping it from clogging up.
Yeah.
They also have a removable impeller that can be replaced by taking these 4 screws out. So the pump ever stops working, we can replace the impeller on it.
That's cool. Now, any add-ons we want to do besides just this?
A lot of things, a lot of neat items are like the fogger, and they actually have LED lights in them.
Oh, I see there on the edges. What's a copper thing?
That is what actually is the heating element that causes the steam to make it fog.
Oh, cool. That's really neat. And then the last thing we want to hook this up with is a hose,
Is
obviously.
tubing, right? Tubing that fits onto the pump. We prefer the black flexible. It's a little easier to disguise, and several of our pumps can take several different sizes. This is
Oh, I see.
bigger, is for that size, but also if you need to go with a bigger tubing, you can actually adapt it to a different size of tubing.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Well, I appreciate all your help. Sure. Guess it's time to get some toys from you and head back to the shop.
All right.
Today we're going to keep it simple. The tools we'll be using are a couple of bowl gouges, a bidan, a Jacob's chuck with a Forstner bit, and even though it's not a tool, lots of epoxy. Oh, got a lot of stuff here. Oh, but this is going to be fun. Now, when we cored our bowl blanks out earlier in the season, remember I was telling you to leave the walls about 1/10 the diameter of the width. I don't know if I said that right, but anyway, if it's 10 inches wide, leave this an inch thick at least, because when these dry, they warp. And you can see, if you look at that, that's a little bit oval, kind of like my head, right? So when you turn this, you're going to have a much thinner wall. Well, guess what I did? I got greedy on that show, and I wanted to get this blank and this blank out, right? Well, this blank wound up being about that thick, and look how thin I had to go on the wall, and look, surprise! I made a funnel. because there wasn't enough room left at the bottom. So the only way to fix it was to actually put a plug on the inside. Now, I'm not too embarrassed to show you my mistakes, but this is how you actually can fix this if you go through the bottom of your bowl. You just cut a plug that'll fit inside and glue it with epoxy. But that'll never be seen because in our project today, it's going to work with these bowl blanks, and we're going to have them stacked like this. Dead center. It's going to be really pretty. Another cool thing about this project is as we finish the bowls, you can see we got some marks in here and stuff. You can see where I didn't quite sand it right. That's okay too, because it's going to be covered with water and rocks to about right here. So we're really only interested in making that pretty and this part pretty. So let's get started on this, because I know a lot of you are wondering, how do you start returning a bowl that you've dried? Because there's no tenon on here. You know, I cored it out. There's nothing on there to grab it with. Well, we've got our chuck up here. We're simply going to take this and press it up against the jaws of the chuck like this. So that holds it good. We're going to bring our tailstock up and then bring our live center in there and tighten that down. Now, this is actually going to be a really good example, as you can see how out around it is. You can see it goes up and down, up and down. So it's way out around, but that looks pretty even. So the next step is we're going to turn a tenon on here that we can hold this in the jaws. I need some glasses for my eyes. And let's go with our small bowl gouge right now. And we're going to start whacking away at this. Turn up speed a little bit. There we go. We're just going to use a little push cut or a pull cut here and just kind of get rid of some of the bounce. We don't want to take much off, and we don't need a pretty bottom on this either. But what is important is we're going to push straight in now. It's going to bounce a little bit while you're doing this. So we're establishing a tenon now. I'm going to grab my calipers really quickly here. I just want to do a check visually. Okay, I can go a little bit thinner. There we go. This is going to actually fit inside of a piece of PVC pipe, one of the connectors, the plastic stuff, and I want to make this fit fairly snug. So now, we can do a pull cut back like this and keep pushing. You can come in like this. It'll bounce a little bit, but you can always do a push cut like this. And all we're doing is establishing a tenon right now. That looks pretty good. Okay. We're going to stop the lathe. I'm going to get my bedan that I've ground at an angle that matches my chuck jaws. Raise the tool rest to about center height because I want to trail the bedan down like this when I do the cut. Now remember, make sure that it's seated firmly on there. Just don't set it here. It'll roll over on you when you do this. So here we go. I've got it seated on there nice and firm. And I'm just going to push it in gently. And just take a little bit of wood. It's kind of a scraping motion. And there we go. We have our perfect tenon. Now we'll stop that, put this back up, and we're going to lower our tool rest back down because now we're going to start coming over here and we're going to start working our way over with sweeping cuts to shape the outside of the bowl here. And it's going to be a little bit bouncy at first because it is out around, but you establish yourself on some good solid wood, it'll be okay. Now the tool will either go through this smoothly or it'll jump forward every now and then. You never know what's going to happen because there's different densities in the wood, and since it's out around, you're going to be hitting air sometimes too. But you can see I'm shifting around the wood right now. And see, I'm starting to take a pretty heavy cut, but I think I'm okay yet. You don't ever want to cut further than your edge is or you'll get a really nasty catch. Now the tool's starting to hang out a little bit too much over the tool rest, so let's go ahead and stop this. And we'll just adjust the tool rest over a little bit. You can see so far, cut's coming out really nicely. And see, I'm barely cutting the wood there, and then look how much wood I'm cutting there. So that's how out around this is. Neat, huh? Okay, go back to this. And I think we should be able to get this cut done pretty easily. And as you come to the end, just go slowly. Like that, because if you push it, it'll chip the wood off. Now, we've got a pretty good shape going right now. If you want to take this tool, though, and put it on its edge, let me do it from this side so you can see it easier. There you go. Put it on its edge right here, and I can pull it back. See the fine shavings that are coming off? That'll help me smooth the surface out to where I don't have to sand very much to finish it up. Okay, we're finishing up with our 240 grit here. Nice and smooth. Now, we're ready to flip this around, and I've kind of run into a little bit of an odd situation. One, I'm done with surgery. The other is that since this is going in a 3-inch piece of PVC, I'm in between jaw sizes. The next size up of jaws won't quite close on that, so we're going to have to open these up a lot wider than I normally would. Because ideally you want your jaws and your tenon to be about the same size when the jaws are almost closed. It gives more surface area. This way, by taking this really, really wide, we're only a touch on 8 points, which is not as secure a hold. However, you know, if you're careful, you'll be fine. There we go, open it. Now I'm putting it in there. I'm going to tighten it down. And it still has the dovetail shape. You can see how it meshes up against it, but it's really only touching on the points right there. So we've got that turned around, and that is nice and tight. So we're going to take our tool rest off. We don't need this anymore. Ugh, at least not right now. And we're going to come over here, and we're going to start hollowing out the bowl. And remember, it is still out around like crazy. So one of the first things I want to do is probably level out the lip here. Get my glasses again. And let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Oh, let's go for the little one here. We'll take a little light cut as we're going. So anyway, we'll turn the speed back up because we've been sanding. There we go. I want this lip to go in because as a water fountain, if the water hits the lip, I don't want it running out, so it's going to run back in. So we're just going to start, nibbling this off a bit at a time. You can't see where the wood is if you look at this, because see, I'm cutting air right now, right? No, there's wood there. So let's go like this. And I'm going to sneak up on this lip just like you would a bead. And go a little bit at a time here. And I'm also cutting into supported grain fibers this way, so it should give me a clean cut since I'm cutting into that. The end grain's running this way. So I'm cutting across it and going down into it. If I wind up with some tear out on the lip on the inside, I'm not really worried about it because we're going to cut that away here in just a second. One more. This is probably our final pass on this. And let me stop the lathe here and show you what it looks like. There we go. Really nice clean cut. Now I'm going to move to my bigger bowl gouge and start working on the middle. Okay, nothing hitting. I've taken the tool rest and I have it angled inside right now. And we're going to get our larger bowl gouge because since it's thicker, as I hang it out over the tool rest, it'll be steadier, there'll be less vibration. So we'll turn this on and we'll make our first cut. And it's important that you aim the flute, not the flute, but the bevel in the direction you want to go, and I want to go in. So I've got it straight there. I'm going to just take a little bit of wood, and I've got it on its side. Once that cut starts, I can start turning the tool up. I'm going to come back and do it again. There we go. Come back, pick it up again. There we go. Now we're doing good. And I just follow the curve of the bowl. And like I said, the cool thing about this project is you don't have to have a perfect inside on your bowl because no one's ever going to see it. Now for practice and for pride, I would say you probably want to take your time and make it nice. But you don't have to. You really only need the top ½ inch of the bowl on the inside to be clean. Now I got to change my stance, so I'm going to stop the tool and pick the cut up again. We're going to swing our body. You can see how I'm moving my body to make this cut. Pick it up again. I've got my left foot already where I want to wind up, and I'm just shifting my weight over to it. A little bit more, and we're going to go across the bottom there. Now the bottom's got kind of a dip in it, so I'm going to make a couple passes here to get down to that bottom level. If you wanted to leave it rough, like I said, you can. That's no big deal. So you can see I've got the bevel riding against the wood. And I just pick the cut up like that. I'm going straight across. There, we're almost there. There we go. We'll keep following and continuing the cut all the way across. When you get in towards the center, take your time because it's fewer feet per second. Same RPM, but the center is just not moving as many feet per second. Clean that up so we don't have a bump. There we go. A little bit of sanding, and we're ready for some epoxy. Okay, now I've turned our third bowl for the project, and I'm drilling a hole that's 1/2 inch in diameter all the way through the bowl here. And the reason I'm doing that is because we have to put a hose through there. It's going to bring the water through. If we didn't have a hole there, we wouldn't be able to do that. So undo this. We'll come over here, and I've already been working on this a little bit. We are going to use PVC pipe to hold everything up and elevate it. So we have a piece of pipe right here. This is going to sit like so. This is going to be on a 2-inch piece of pipe like that. Now just make sure when you do your measurements that you want the pipe to be cut to where the bottom is slightly below the level of the next bowl. That way when you put your rocks and stuff in, you won't see this ugly PVC pipe. Now these are couplers, and I'm going to cut a piece of pipe that'll fit in there so they go together like that. The reason, because I want to be able to pull this apart later in case I have to repair anything, change something out, or do something like that, so it'll be, in pieces. Also, I cut a hole in here because that's where the hose is going to go up from the bottom here and go up through the next bowl up to the top bowl, and the water comes down. But we'll show you that later in all the assembly. So what I have right now going is we have some 2-part epoxy with a 20-minute work time, and I've already mixed it up. And you want to mix it up gently because you will get bubbles in this process. We're going to take our first piece of PVC, and we're going to be generous with the glue. And we're going to put it on here like so. Just get around. We want to make really good contact. You can be messy. This is never going to show. This is going to be under the bowl. But we want it to be nice and secure. Now epoxy, why did I choose that? Because it's the closest thing to waterproofing I can find. You use polyurethane, any other sort of finish like that, it's good, but it's not waterproof. So we'll take this and we're going to put it right on our 3-inch tenon. Remember, we cut that at 3 inches, so it fits that piece of pipe. Now we'll do the same in a little bit for our 2-inch one. The same thing. I'll have to cut these down in size though to make the height a little bit different. But how do we waterproof the bowls? Well, let's start right now. We're just going to take a bunch of this this is the epoxy, and put it in there. And the best thing I found was to use a piece of cardboard to spread it out. And you want to do it slowly and thinly. And we want it thin because this tends to bubble as it dries. And the thicker it is, the more bubbles you'll have. Now you don't have to worry about the bubbles inside the bowl as much, but we're also going to do the rim here in a little bit. So we just want to keep going thin like that. Now up on the rim, we lay some out. We want to come like this and scrape back towards inside. So that's a very thin coat on there. Now, if the coating comes out a little bit bumpy and a little bit messy, and this comes out really high gloss too, it's going to look kind of wet. Well, that's no big deal because you've got water running all the time over what you've done, and you can't even tell here that this is bumpy at all, but this finish is a little bit bumpy. It keeps the brush strokes or the cardboard strokes in it, but with the water on top of it, you never notice it. So anyway, this is going to take a little while to do. Hopefully I only have 20 minutes to get the first coat on here, but while I'm doing that, now it's time for your turn. George from Canada has a question about grain direction. He says, you're always talking about uphill and downhill cutting. What does that mean? Well, I've been looking for the perfect piece of wood to explain that. Here it is. It's my poor example of making a piece of wood. This is the wood in the tree this way. When you turn it sideways and cut it in half, you see all the fibers. And this is how the water goes up and down the tree. So when you're turning, the direction of these fibers is very important. When we're doing a spindle turning, where the grain is running in front of us like this, we have to cut downhill because as you cut into this, you see this fiber is supported by that fiber. So it's a clean cut. You come uphill, no support. The fibers will tear. It's a really rugged cut. But that changes when you're doing a bowl and you have the grain direction running this way and the tailstock's here, headstock's here, and it's spinning like this, you actually have to cut uphill as you make the curve because these are supported. Again, you come this way, no support. So now, I hope that helps you out with how grain direction works and why uphill and downhill are important. Hi there. It's been about a week since we were last in the shop working on our fountain, and I'm doing the last touches on the big bowl. We have 2 coats of hand rubbed polyurethane on here, and I'm taking a carnauba wax and buffing that onto the surface. It really brings out the shine. And as you can see inside, we have our epoxy in, we have our PVC connector in there, everything is ready to go. And over here, we're going to get ready to start doing the assembly. Now, let me recap on what we did and where we are, just so everybody follows well. We have a 3-inch PVC tube connector in here, and I had to cut one shorter to go on the bottom here, and then we have a piece of 3-inch PVC that fits inside. Now I actually sanded this down on a wheel so it'll fit in there easily because I want to be able to pull this out later if I have to do some work on it. The bottom rests a little bit below the rim, so when we have it like this and have the rocks piled up, you'll never see the PVC. We also have a second piece, which is a little one, and this is 2-inch in here, and that goes in there like so, and then this goes on there on top also. Something like that. Anyway, looks kind of ugly, but we're going to fix all that up with some rocks here in a second. But the first thing we need to do is grab our tubing, and this is why we drilled the holes, because the hole in here allows the tubing to come through. We'll pull out some extra when I do this. There we go. And we can then take the tubing through here, and we just want the tubing to come to the surface. I see this is not easy. Of the bowl here. There we go. So we just want to be about there. You can actually take some silicone like you use around your sinks and your bathtubs and seal that off if you're worried about it slipping out. So we'll take us back down here, pull that in like so. Okay. Then we're going to take it, stay. And we're going to cut off a little section here. I got a lot of excess going on. There we go. Run this through here, and then this comes in here, out the rabbit hole that we made in here for that to escape. So this goes on here like so, and there we go. Okay, now I'm adding a little bit of water because we have to test our pump before we put in our rocks and everything. And here's our pump. It's got the hose attached. It goes into the water like so. I'm going to put a little more water in there, cover it up better. There we go. Now, I'm a little nervous about this. Moment of truth. Ah! Okay, well that's not as bad as it could have been, but we don't want it that high. We want to basically have it bubbling just a little bit like that, because once it gets running and the rocks are in there, we'll hear a nice little trickle of water then. But you don't want it really high because you can get into a lot of trouble with it. So anyway, that's running. The next step is, and I've rinsed them all off here so I don't have any dirt in them, is to put in rocks. And these are ornamental river rock, and they're real shiny. So take me a few minutes to get this filled in here, and then we'll look at it again and put some lighting on. That's pretty nice. Oh, a heart. Okay, I have all the rocks in there. I think it looks pretty good. And a little cool thing that's added in there, I'm going to turn this on right now, is a little fogger. That's sweet. And it has lights on it which change color. And you can put a lot more lights in here. And also keep in mind, you can do this with just 1 bowl, 2 bowls, however you want to build it. Just watch for splash out. And little method to my madness with all the PVC pipe and nothing glued. See how that wiggles? If this is flowing off to the side like that, I have the ability to shift it and get it to come to the front. Really cool stuff. And as the rocks dry out, the water comes off the top and they dry out, right? Well, just take some polyurethane and do a hand rub coat on top of that. They'll always look wet and never dry out. Anyway, now the cool thing is, let's turn the lights off and see how this thing really looks. That is awesome. See how the fogger rolls across the rocks? It gives it a really neat look. And the water dripping down, you can even hear the splashing. That's really soothing. I think it's a really, really fun project. I hope you get to try it out too. Well, until the next time on the Woodturning Workshop, keep turning.
Next time on the Woodturning Workshop.
Hey, if you're a fan of the show, you remember last year I showed you how to do metal spinning. It was exciting. Spectacular. Okay, maybe not so great. I'm gonna redeem myself just for you. Spin. See how that moved out? Come back. Thank you for coming to our workshop all the way from Texas. Oh, so I kind of failed on that one, huh? That's why I have you here.
For more information about the Woodturning Workshop, visit our website at rsupublictv.org.
This is my make 220, 240. I've been in the woods looking for some wood. I forgot what grade it was. Looking for the perfect piece of tree. What is it, 220 or 240? Canada's question about grain. Canada's question. Can you read that? Today, we're going to do pan flute music.
The Woodturning Workshop is made possible in part by
Woodcraft, since 1928, providing traditional and modern woodworking tools and supplies to generations of craftsmen. Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Easy Wood Tools, offering a full line of wood-turning tools with replaceable carbide cutters. To order a DVD of this or any other episode, call 1-800-823-7210 or visit rsupublictv.org.
This week on the Woodturning Workshop, we're going to chill out and make a soothing water fountain. Once that cut starts, I can start turning the tool up. Now just make sure when you do your measurements that you want the pipe to be cut to where the bottom is slightly below the level of the next bowl. I'm a little nervous about this. Moment of truth. Ah!